I read some books, and there were 12 of them, and some were good, and some were bad. Alright, thanks for watching. Whoa, I'm not done yet. So welcome to this month's wrap-up. Sure, it's the middle of the month, but as Daylight Savings has shown us, time is kind of made up. So remain seating, and I will tell you about what I've read in the last 30 days. Let's start with This Vicious Grace by Emily Thiede. Thiede? I describe this book as if Rogue from X-Men had to play a tower defense game and had an Italian hunk on their side. It's a romance fantasy story. There were a lot of moments that I was laughing out loud as the characters danced around the innuendos. The next book is The Half-Life of Valery K by Natasha Pulley. It follows a Russian nuclear scientist who studies the fallout of a failed reactor. Sure, this scientist did conduct experimentations on humans with the Nazis, but don't judge them too quickly because they're neurodivergent and gay and maybe a minor. The actual history about Chelyabinsk and the reactor there was interesting and well researched, but adding in these kind of sensationalist details, a poorly laid out mystery, and making me feel like I should have liked this character all really muddied that water. The next one is The Mother of Learning by Nobody 103. It's Groundhog's Day meets Harry Potter meets Cradle. A fun progression fantasy that actually delivers a satisfying ending, which is impressive given the 800,000 word count. 800,000 words. That's similar to The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the entire Chronicles of Narnia all in one. You're welcome. Next, The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This one is a folklore inspired by 1001 Arabian Nights, which follows a woman who's been tasked with finding a lamp to destroy jinn and their magic. The main character is a ball of rage and chaos, and she has a stoic jinn bodyguard who smooths everything out. Everything is on fire all of the time. Next, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. The mysterious and gloomy atmosphere of Poe's original story is not done by accident, and trying to give a scientific explanation does not really improve upon it. I would go back and read the original story. Next is Squire by Sara Alfageeh and Nadia Shammas. This is a graphic novel similar to Tamora Pierce's work, with a real emphasis on the dangers and issues of othering people and colonialism. I loved the visuals and the visual pairing of a small feisty girl and a huge grizzled veteran. It's a not necessarily hopeful but realistic read that could inspire future illustrators. Next, I read A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This one's a 5 out of 5 for me, a 10 out of 10. I will read this again. I did a whole video on it, so go back and check that out. Next, I read The Wizard's Brew by Jordan Reed. This is a fantasy mystery where the detective shows just utter ignorance when they're facing evidence. And pairing that incompetence of a character with really stilted dialogue and honestly sentences that needed commas, this book was not for me. Face by Joma West. This is a sci-fi story where the opening utterly slaps. It is one where the realistic and raw and clear tone really caught my attention from the beginning. After the opening, we follow characters that are mostly numbed out on Xanax as they're struggling with society and their expectations. And I would say that the weight of the society and race and class and privilege and sex and just all those expectations, where they were pointed out, but I don't know if there was a lesson imparted that really paid off in the end. This is one I want to hear more from others because I think I'm missing a second level. Next is Stringers by Chris Panatier. This one is John Dies at the End plus Jasper Fforde and Hitchhiker's Guide all mixed together. It's a kooky story where we follow a guy who weirdly knows too much about how insects mate and his stoner buddy as they go into space. It's a wild and weird story, but the author has the writing chops to pull it off. Unfortunately, the ending as the world expanded got a little more humdrum and lost some of that uniqueness to me. Another book from the same publisher of Angry Robot was Mercury Rising by R.W.W. Greene. Back in the 1970s, muscular, manly astronauts are preparing for an alien invasion. And yes, the astronaut ship is comprised fully of gay astronauts. This story is very paint by numbers in its story structure, but the details inside are anything but. And finally, I read Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. This one was a story about a berserker paladin and a female perfumist as they are caught up in a poisoning of a prince in the city. This one was all about the will they, won't they, and miscommunication about how each other felt. And I know it's common as a romance trope, but for me, it really didn't work. No thanks. Alright, so reading this much in a month was overkill, but I'm really, really appreciative of the publishers and NetGalley for so many advanced copies. I would say the books that disappointed me the most were ones where I really liked the premise. They built it up, Buttercup, and then they let me down. But if any of the summaries I gave here intrigued you, go ahead and read them. I'm just a reviewer, I'm not a cop. Have you read any of the books I've mentioned, or will you? Send me a note, because I'm interested to hear your thoughts.